Discover the touching moment when a rancher revealed hidden courage after she moaned in pain. Sarah's breath hitched as she stood amid the gusty emptiness of the Wyoming plains. The oppressive weight of the family ranch loomed over her, its legacy binding her like the ropes meant for cattle. Catching the last rays of sunlight filtering through the darkening sky, she clenched her fists, battling the whirlpool of emotions rising within her. Each day, she was forced to tiptoe between the dreams she held dearly and the relentless demands of her father, whose health was waning beneath the weight of their lineage. As she surveyed the land, memories flooded her mind, the moments spent dreaming of opening a bakery in town or taking her horses to the racetrack. But the relentless voice of the townsfolk echoed continuously, labeling her as the farmer's daughter. Nothing more. Each time they spoke, she felt a piece of her spirit being chipped away. They didn't see the woman behind the calloused hands and sun-kissed skin, they saw only obligation. For her father, she fought battles daily, all while grappling with her ever-growing discontent. An urgency flickered over her like storm clouds gathering on the horizon as the phone rang, a series of frantic calls from neighbors needing help with flooded pastures. The air thickened with the weight of others' needs pressing against the fragile walls of her own aspirations. With every syllable exchanged, an internal war raged inside Sarah, their voices pleading for her assistance while hers whispered for her independence, each like a relentless windstorm trying to knock her off her feet. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Locked in her inner turmoil and with the ominous storm inching closer, Sarah found herself raiding her mother's old shed for tools. Each creaking floorboard groaned under her weight, and that's when she felt it, a loosened board hiding a forgotten journal. With trembling hands, she pulled it free, its worn edges telling tales of a woman who had weathered her own tempests. Flipping open the pages revealed insights into a life lived facing storms both external and internal, the very essence of survival that had built the ranch. Her mother's emotional battles mirrored her own, moments of courage etched deep within those pages ignited a flicker of resolve in Sarah. Her fears began to wane but were quickly replaced with something darker, an understanding of the precarious line she walked. Hours dragged into tension as Sarah faced the gathering storm. She could see Joshua, the rival rancher, eyeing her from a distance, and his disdain was palpable. Yet behind that facade, she sensed vulnerability, questioning how much of his own burden he carried. As she swallowed hard against the uncertainty, she found herself on the brink. With the storm looming heavy, she yearned to forge ahead, enveloped in a fierce sense of responsibility. But could she truly confront both the storm raging outside and the doubts brewing inside her own mind? Even as wind began to tear at the edges of her world, a realization loomed larger: the true battle was always within. And as the first raindrops fell, she stood alone, heart racing against the tempest of expectations and dreams. Would she find the strength to finally take action, or would fear steal away everything she longed for? As rain pelted the ground, each drop resonated with promise and anxiety. Sarah inhaled the earthy scent of damp soil, but it tasted bitter against her tongue, a reminder that the weight of her decisions was far from merely metaphorical. Gritting her teeth, she clenched the journal tighter, the worn leather a lifeline connecting her to her mother's spirit. With the storm bearing down on her, she sensed a shift in her aspirations: the bakery, the racetrack, everything felt tied to a reality she could still reach for. In the distance, the flash of lightning illuminated Joshua's silhouette, reminding her that it wasn't just the elements she had to contend with. The unrelenting judgment in his eyes cut deeper than any storm. She had spent her life hiding behind the designation of farmer's daughter, but tonight, as thunder rolled ominously overhead, she wondered if it was time to stand against that label and redefine herself. The thunder echoed like the war drums of her internal conflict as she weighed the sacrifices she had made. She sprung to life, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The phone calls from her neighbors had left her uncertain yet aflame with determination. Maybe this was her moment, not to yield to the role of caretaker, but to assert her identity amidst the chaos. Instead of abandoning her dreams, she could weave them into the fabric of her responsibilities, flipping through her mother's journal. The ink told stories of resilience, ingenuity, and defiance. Her mother had faced challenges that threatened to strip away her identity too, yet she had fought to emerge with her spirit intact. Inspired by those pages, Sarah's resolve began to crystallize. She would assist the neighbors, but in doing so, she would not compromise her sense of self. Each act would not merely be about obligation, it would be an expression of who she was. With renewed clarity, she dashed toward her truck, the rain dissolving her previous hesitation. The engine roared to life as she navigated the slick roads leading to the flooded pastures. The rush of wind through the open windows mirrored the frantic yet thrilling heartbeat of her ambition. As she arrived to help, she took stock of the situation. Her neighbors looked wearied but hopeful, their livelihoods hanging in the balance, and for the first time, she didn't feel resentful about helping. Instead, a powerful sense of purpose surged through her. "Sarah!" called out Tom, a local farmer, his voice tinged with relief as he saw her. "We could use your expertise. The rush is overwhelming." In that moment, she was not just the farmer's daughter, she was a skilled rancher, a beacon of strength amidst the rising waters. Her hands, once just tools of cultivation, became vehicles for saving the lives they nurtured. Together, they worked side by side, the community rallying around her. Hours passed in a blur of muddy effort, but as the rain subsided, a breathtaking calm replaced the earlier storm. The community was grateful, amazed at her ability to forge a path amidst adversity. Sarah realized she had not only assisted others, she had inadvertently cultivated seeds of her own dreams, grounding them in the soil of shared experiences. The storm had tested her and drawn out hidden depths she never knew existed. With each passing moment, she felt less like Jane Doe, the farmer's daughter, and more like Sarah, the woman who would take control of her destiny. As the sun broke through the clouds, a signal of rebirth, Sarah leaned back against her truck, exhaustion mixing with exhilaration. She felt a change stirring within, but instead of calm fulfillment, a new wave of uncertainty washed over her. What would she do next to harness this courage? Just as she began to consider possibilities, a sleek figure emerged from the tree line, a truck that looked all too familiar. The last person she expected to see stood before her, Joshua, his expression unreadable, carrying a storm of his own. Could they navigate this unpredictable terrain together, or would old rivalries undermine their newfound strength? Joshua stepped closer, his silhouette sharp against the remnants of the storm. Sarah felt her pulse quicken, an unsettling cocktail of anticipation and anxiety churning in her stomach. The energy between them was thick, charged with unresolved tension, and as he approached, the embrace of shared history and rivalry surrounded them both. "Sarah," he started, his voice low, laced with apprehension. "I didn't think you'd actually come. You've always sidestepped challenges like this." The words felt like a challenge, but also an invitation, pricking at her newfound determination. "Maybe that was before," she replied, the wind sweeping her words into the distance. The remark hung between them, laden with unspoken implications of change. She could feel the weight of his gaze, steady yet probing. She was awakening, shedding old limitations, and the storm of doubts inside her began to synchronize with the calm she had just experienced. "Is that so?" Joshua replied, skepticism edging into his tone. "You suddenly want to be the town hero?" Her brows knit together, conflicting emotions fighting for supremacy. Was this his way of pushing her back into familiar boundaries? "No more. It's not about heroics. It's south about recognizing my place not only here, but in my own journey. I won't be defined by just being the farmer's daughter anymore." She watched as his expression shifted momentarily, surprise, admiration, and a flicker of fear that her transformation might disrupt their usual roles. This was not the empowered confrontation she envisioned, instead, it slid into a precarious balance of expectations and history. "The last time I checked," he countered, stepping closer, "the world doesn't just let you redefine yourself overnight. You think you have what it takes to break away from the labels?" His challenge ignited a fire within her, pushing her to the edge of old insecurities. "You don't get to decide what I'm capable of, Joshua," she said, grounding herself in a newfound strength. "I've spent years viewing the world through your lens, but now I'm rewriting my own narrative, and it includes my dreams." Silence wrapped around them, a tense moment where realization flickered in his eyes. But Joshua wasn't finished. He was still holding on to their history, unwilling to relinquish control over their interactions. "And what do you intend to do about the bakery, the racetrack? Are you ready for those kinds of risks?" She inhaled deeply, challenging her own apprehensions. "I'm ready to confront every fear that comes with pursuing what I want. I've realized that every day I hold back is a day I betray myself. I'm ready to fight for my vision." With each declaration, Sarah felt the embers of her ambitions burning brighter, urging her forth. "Those are tall orders," he said quietly, yet the challenge was tinged with a hint of interest rather than dismissiveness. "Tall orders can lead to something extraordinary," she shot back, each word fueling confidence she had never embraced before. Joshua's facade wavered, a glimpse of the boy who had once shared her dreams flickering within him. They stood apart yet connected, channeling the energy of their competing aspirations. "If we want to transform this place, ourselves into what it deserves, we need to decide if putting aside our differences is worth that ambition. Are you willing to fight with me or against me?" The weight of their past bore down on them, the gravity of their childhood rivalry still potent. But this time, Sarah felt positioned to determine her path. The challenge lay bare: would Joshua join her in pursuit of something greater than themselves, or would he cling to the familiar, the comfortable? His eyes bored into hers, contemplating the forks in their road. "I guess we'll need to see if you can handle the truth about those dreams." Instantly, she recognized the duality of his words, his critique but also an invitation to push each other further than they ever had before. With the sun illuminating their surroundings, clarity washed over her. "Then let us find out what that truth holds," she said, the weight of collective history morphing into potential electricity. With that proclamation, Sarah understood they were standing at the edge of a different storm, one she was determined to weather on her own terms. As Joshua reluctantly nodded, she felt the stirring of an alliance reserved for two fierce spirits no longer willing to abide by past definitions, but uncertainty lingered. What truths would emerge amid this new partnership? What legacy lay ahead for them both if they dared to confront the reality of their ambitions together? Just as those questions loomed, the distant rumble of thunder echoed again in the distance, signaling that this journey was only just beginning. Sarah stood staring at Joshua, the weight of his challenge lingering in the air. The storm had settled into silence around them, a calm before the storm of her own ambition. What was once a quiet farmland now felt like a battleground for her aspirations, each blade of grass a reminder of the life she had sought to escape yet was tethered to. Determination surged inside her. She thought of the bakery, the risks of starting fresh, the need for capital, and the entrepreneurial spirit that lay dormant for too long. What of the racetrack? A symbol of her yearning for freedom and adventure. Her thoughts began to spiral into action plans, yet deep down, fear clawed at her resolve. "Joshua," she finally said, her voice steady, "I'm serious about this. I don't want to play it safe anymore. I need to know that beyond school, beyond my family's expectations, I can be more." The vulnerable admission cut through the tension, his eyes softened slightly, revealing the chambers of memory they had shared. Joshua crossed his arms, lingering on her transformative words. "And what if you fail? Do you have a backup?" Backup? The very notion sent a shiver through her. "No, I don't want to have an escape route. I want to face every risk head-on. Without risk, there's no reward." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "It sounds heroic, but life doesn't always play by those rules. We're not kids anymore." His skepticism stung, but Sarah found herself embracing the discomfort. Then what's the alternative? To accept a life dictated by fear? No more. I'm ready to be uncomfortable. His expression hardened into contemplation. She took a deep breath. "Look, I know you think I'm just seeking a fairy tale. I want you to understand, this is about fighting for what I believe I can achieve. For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered in Joshua's eyes, a mirror reflecting her own fears. She recognized the complexity of the situation. He desperately wanted to keep their rivalry alive, but perhaps, buried beneath that, was a flicker of hope for collaboration. Maybe, just maybe, you're onto something. But it's not just a one-woman show. You'll need help to get that bakery off the ground, Sarah. Connections, resources, real teamwork. I get it, she replied, the walls of defiance slowly softening into an alliance. I want to work together, but it's going to take more than casual back and forth. We each have to admit what this really means. What does it mean for you? Joshua pressed, instinctively leaning towards her, revealing a mix of curiosity and complication. It means stepping outside what our families expect of us. Our dreams are screaming to be explored. For so long, I've felt bound by what this town has deemed me. It's time to break those chains. Her voice was now resolute, each word infused with conviction. And you think I'll be any help? His question hung between them like a fragile bridge, yet she could sense it shifting with the weight of doubt. I believe we can inspire each other. If we're honest, our combined ambitions could shatter the limits imposed on us. I need you in this, Joshua. We can redefine what this town looks like, and in doing so, redefine ourselves. Tentatively, he nodded, as if inching toward collaboration rather than rivalry. The tension crackled as they both hesitated at the precipice of something that could pull them together or drive them apart. But just like the storm that had just passed, dark clouds loomed on the horizon, and the light of clarity only illuminated possible paths to dare to step further out from the familiar shadow of their past. What if Joshua began, but his hesitation echoed with potential. Sarah faced him, bracing for the tempest of an idea that could either cement their budding partnership or scatter their aspirations. What if we actually dared to take the present seriously? The gravity of their uncharted territory weighted heavily, yet for the first time, she realized that every risky step brought clarity with the promise of fortitude waiting on the other side. Before she could respond, a distant rumble of thunder interrupted the air again. As the clouds thickened, both felt the pulse of inevitability. Something was shifting, and they were caught in a whirlwind of their own making. Would they hold tight to confrontation, or embrace collaboration as they ventured into a shared future? Behind her, the bakery waited like an uncut diamond, and the racetrack stretched out with limitless possibilities. What awaited them both in their confrontation with reality? The echoes of long-held dreams beckoning them to discover the unspoken truth of their aspirations surged, hinting that the greatest challenges still lay ahead. The days that followed felt surreal to Sarah. The initial bounce of possibilities mingled with a nagging uncertainty, each sunrise pushing her aspirations further into reality. Each morning brought the smell of freshly churned earth and the sweet scent of the wildflowers, masking the confusion brewing deep within her. Joshua had explained his connections to local farmers and business associates, weaving a plan together that was both enticing and terrifying. They agreed to meet regularly, using each encounter to map their world of opportunity. But as Sarah ventured into these planning sessions, excitement wrestled with insecurities. Was she truly equipped to turn a lifelong dream into a bakery that could thrive? Where do I even begin? She muttered during one of their meetings, running a finger across a stack of scattered notes and sketches. Start by identifying what you want your brand to represent, Joshua replied, leaning back, arms crossed, the casual demeanor hiding a seriousness that pushed her to dig deeper. Her mind spiraled. Branding. Marketing. Suppliers. Memories of school lectures about entrepreneurship rushed back, pages of textbooks filled with theories that suddenly felt distant and inadequate. I want my brand to tell my story, she stated impulsively, but doubt gnawed at her. Good, but what is your story? Can you express it without sounding cliché? He challenged. His gaze pierced through to unearth the underlying truth behind her aspirations. It's about authenticity, Sarah finally whispered, her voice thick with resolve. Every loaf, every treat will come from my heart. I want my bakery to be a space where people feel at home, where they find solace. That's the spirit, Joshua encouraged. But you have to define what that means. Can you make that emotional connection real? What will set you apart? In that moment, Sarah realized she had neglected the core of her vision while trying to build the external structure. She had been so focused on logistics that she forgot the very essence herself. Crafting her narrative became more than just selling pastries, it was a vessel for her journey. Weeks went by as they delved deeper into preparations. Sarah started reaching out to suppliers and even attended local farmers' markets to connect with potential collaborators. Every conversation felt monumental, yet her throat tightened with trepidation at every new interaction. What if they didn't take her seriously? What if they dismissed her dream as naive? Yet, as she wandered through the bustling stalls of the market, she began to notice something shifting inside her. Confidence was sprouting slowly, nudging her comfort zones to expand. Each interaction chipped away at her fear and showed her where her passions lay. See? Joshua commented during one visit as he noted her growing ease with approaching strangers. You're getting the hang of this. Maybe, she remarked, a flicker of pride illuminating her doubts. One rainy afternoon, the two met at a local cafe to refine their strategies. As they discussed delivery options, Joshua's playful jab about her indecisiveness nudged her to reconsider a pivotal decision. Just pull the trigger, Sarah. This is about moving forward, not holding back, he urged, his tone serious. Glancing out the window, she noticed raindrops racing down the glass. It felt like another storm was brewing. I need to dive in, don't I? Absolutely, Joshua replied. Even a half-baked idea is better than no idea. It shows you're willing to commit. His words struck a chord. She realized the truth, commitment was the foundation on which everything else would stand. The bakery would require complete vulnerability, a leap of faith she had been postponing. As she nodded, a moment of clarity washed over her. Let's simplify our approach. I'll create a social media page to share my story and get feedback. The idea sparked a burst of excitement. That's a tangible step, Joshua agreed, a smile creasing his lips. You'll see, the more you share, the more engagement you'll earn. But remember, vulnerability is key. Renouncing her fears felt exhilarating, but then doubt seeped back in, whispering concerns of judgment and failure. Was she ready to put her dreams out into the world? The joy of her vision clashed with the anxiety of public scrutiny. Maybe I should wait until everything is perfect, look professional. She trailed off. Waiting leads to stagnation, Sarah, he replied firmly. Embrace the imperfections. They make you real. As their discussion morphed into strategizing different launch plans, the urgency in her heart mixed with a newfound determination. Sarah felt internally liberated yet teetering on the cliff of insecurity. Later, as they wrapped up, Joshua added, tomorrow, I want to meet at the racetrack. We need new energy. Let's get the creative juices flowing. A mix of horror and excitement washed over her. The racetrack, a symbol of her untamed dreams and past freedom. Facing it felt like a paradoxical challenge. Would stepping back into that adrenaline-fueled environment strengthen her resolve or unravel her fragile confidence? Are you ready to confront more than just your bakery? He asked, reading her expression. It's time to face what you've been holding back. Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that the future loomed before her, a whirlwind of opportunities. Yet, the clouds overhead twisted into uncertainty like an unfinished tapestry. Would the confrontation at the racetrack be her launching pad or a final push toward her fear? All that remained was the question hanging in the air. Would she dare to plunge into the storm waiting for her, or would hesitation grip her tightly, chaining her dreams to the ground? The following day dawned bright and clear, an unexpected contrast to the storm of emotions that swirled within Sarah. As she approached the racetrack, memories of speeding cars and cheering crowds washed over her in waves. Her heart raced, not from the thrill of the past, but from the weight of anticipation. This was not merely about facing the racetrack, it was about confronting the faceless fears that had lingered too long in the shadows. Joshua was already there, pacing along the track, seemingly absorbing the atmosphere. "You made it," he said, a hint of encouragement in his voice as he sensed her trepidation. "Are you ready to let go of what's been holding you back? What if I crash again?" She replied, half joking, half serious, as memories of a reckless ride reared their head. The last race had left its mark, both physically and mentally. "Only if you don't trust yourself," he countered smoothly, his eyes glinting. "Today isn't about racing, it's about reclaiming your power." His words landed heavily, resonating in the recesses of her mind where doubt had taken root. What had been a mere thrill now felt like a chance to reclaim not just her courage but the narrative of her journey. Sarah stepped toward the track, each footfall echoing a defiant beat against the doubts. "What if I can't do this?" The question rolled off her tongue, barely above a whisper. "Trust the process," Joshua responded, his voice steady. "Remember our conversations? Each step may feel shaky, but each one is a part of your story. Give yourself permission to take that leap." Taking a deep breath, Sarah closed her eyes and felt the warmth of the sun on her face. The very act of standing there felt like a declaration. Today, she wouldn't just confront her fear of the racetrack, she would discover parts of herself that had been buried under layers of uncertainty. Let's visualize your bakery. Imagine the smells, the warmth, the joy you want to create, Joshua urged, his enthusiasm infectious. "Baking means something special to me," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "It's like a celebration of life. Each loaf holds a piece of my heart, my experiences, the trials that molded me." "Exactly," he said, nodding as they began to walk along the edge of the track. "Now visualize sharing that with others. Feel the spark in that connection." As they walked, a tension she hadn't noticed began to dissipate from her shoulders. Sarah's thoughts shifted. She envisioned her bakery bustling with laughter, the scent of baked goods wrapping around her customers like a warm embrace. It was a tapestry woven from every struggle, every small victory. What if failure is just a step in the journey, rather than the destination? She pondered aloud. Joshua's response was immediate. "That's the spirit. We only fail when we stop trying. Let us bring that energy into today, shall we?" As they reached a stretch in the track, Sarah felt an urge to run, to channel her pent-up energy. Without hesitation, she broke into a brisk jog, the wind catching in her hair as she moved faster, heart pounding. In that moment, clarity sharpened her focus. This was more than a physical act, it was a manifestation of reclaiming control over her life. When she finally slowed, breathless but invigorated, Joshua grinned. "That's the power of action, Sarah. You faced it and moved forward." Still catching her breath, she smiled back, flooded with a sense of freedom that she had thought lost. Perhaps there was strength hidden beneath her doubts after all. "Imagine translating that energy into your launch," he suggested, his tone inviting. "Right," she nodded, excitement bubbling. A tangible idea was forming. Social media posts that captured her journey, not just the bakery building but the emotional hurdles as well. Each small failure serving as a stepping stone rather than a roadblock. But just as a flicker of inspiration ignited within her, uncertainty crept back. Would she truly be able to keep this momentum going? "Remember, Sarah," Joshua said, sensing her hesitation yet again, "doubt is natural. It's what you do with it that shapes your path." Sarah took a deep, grounding breath. The racetrack had become more than just a gathering place for thrill seekers, it had become a springboard for her aspirations. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden glow on the track, she felt exhilaration tangle with nagging fear. Embracing imperfections was one thing, but what would it truly mean to put herself out there publicly? The next step loomed large. Would she share her story despite it being raw and unfinished? Could she bear the weight of scrutiny that could come from such vulnerability? "Let us explore that," Joshua said, as if reading her mind. "What's the real fear behind sharing?" The deep question hung in the air, tethering Sarah's focus. She had a choice to make, one that would place her in the spotlight she both craved and dreaded. Would she shape her narrative, or would she let hesitation and fear bind her once more? The answer felt perilously close yet tantalizingly out of reach, leaving her breathless with anticipation. The truth of who she wanted to be stood at the precipice, waiting for her to leap. What would she discover when she crossed that threshold? The soft hum of the racetrack lingered in the air as Sarah stood at the edge, grappling with her thoughts. Joshua's question swirled in her mind, echoing louder than the distant revving of engines. What was the real fear behind sharing? Was it the exposure, the vulnerability, or the potential judgment from strangers? She had built a life around her bakery dreams, yet the thought of transparency felt like stepping into a bold and blinding light. I guess it's about being seen, she finally admitted, her voice steady but tinted with trepidation. What if they see my failures instead of my efforts? What if they define me by my past mistakes? That fear has power only if you let it, Joshua replied, stepping closer. Your narrative doesn't only include the failures, it encompasses the growth from them. You can redefine the conversation. His words ignited a small spark of defiance within her. They illuminated the shadows of her insecurities with the possibility of crafting a new identity, one that embraced imperfection while celebrating resilience. With each heartbeat, she envisioned her story a patchwork of trials, lessons learned, and victories both big and small. As the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows, Sarah found herself caught between the warmth of potential and the chill of doubt. But what if the backlash is too heavy? What if it hurts? Then that's part of your truth too, Joshua encouraged. Embracing that pain is critical. It can give your story depth. You're not alone in this. Others have walked similar paths. Your honesty may empower someone else. The suggestion resonated deeply, harmonizing with thoughts that had been silently brewing. When had she decided to hide behind the veil of perfect in the bakery? Why had she been so afraid of sharing what felt unfinished? It was in the vulnerability that genuine connections were formed, and perhaps her story could reach and affect others. With newfound resolve, Sarah decided to confront that looming question head-on. I think I want to share it. But how? Start small, Joshua suggested, his expression open and encouraging. Share snippets of your journey on social media. People want authenticity, they want the human side of success, not just the polished final product. Show the sticky flour on your apron and the burnt crusts. Those signals of struggle make the success sweeter. Visuals flashed before her, a behind-the-scenes glimpse into her kitchen, flour-covered hands kneading dough, and snippets of laughter with friends on good days and bad. One post could be an open note about fears shadowing the joys of baking, another, a moment of vulnerability contemplating her racing career. She could bridge stories of the racetrack with her passion for baking, using both as metaphors for life's unpredictability. Her heart swelled, and a wave of relief flooded her. Perhaps this was the embodiment of reclaiming her power, finding courage in uncertainty and sharing her journey despite it. What do the first posts look like? Joshua asked gently, guiding her back into her thoughts. Maybe it's announcing my bakery vision, she mused, excitement bubbling again. And perhaps I can share a little about why I love baking. How it represents resilience for me. I could reveal the fear I've felt facing both races and ovens. As she spoke, the pieces fell into place. This was not merely a launch, it was an invitation for engagement, a way to ignite conversations about overcoming fears, seeking improvement, and embracing every mistake as part of her recipe. Sarah could feel the palpable change in her energy, the fears receding like the waning daylight. Let us do it. Her voice strengthened now, signifying a commitment not only to her bakery but to herself, with all the complexity it entailed. Joshua smiled, pride sparkling in his eyes. Then let us strategize your first post. Let us make sure the world sees you a real journey, fear and all. But even as exhilaration coursed through her, a flicker of doubt remained. Every leap came with a risk, and sharing her thoughts invitingly meant relinquishing a part of herself. What if the backlash became too heavy? What if they noticed her past mistakes more than her growth? With her pulse quickening, Sarah understood that standing still in fear was no longer an option. "I'll write it by the end of the week," she declared, a sigh escaping her. "So what's next?" Joshua queried, drawing her attention back. "Next I'll have to confront those fears again," she reflected. "But this time, I'll do it publicly." The weight of her decision mingled with the thrill of potential backlash. For the first time, she realized that stepping into the light meant embracing the shadows too. As they left the track behind, a quiet determination replaced her earlier anxieties. She would tell her story, draw connections, and possibly illustrate that growth never followed a flawless path. With the horizon stretching ahead, Sarah felt more capable than ever, but the lingering question shimmered in the background. How would she handle the unexpected responses from her new audience? Would she crumble under scrutiny, or rise to become the empowered version of herself she envisioned? A crossroads was ahead, one where visibility became part of her journey. The stakes were as high as they had ever been. The following days moved with an unpredictable rhythm, each moment layered with the weight of anticipation. Sarah's determination pulsed through her as she sat at her kitchen table, flowers scattered like faded memories across its surface. A blank page stared back, challenging her to fill it with the truth of her journey. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself. How does one articulate vulnerability? Each word felt like a plunge into cold water, shocking yet electrifying. Her feelings spiraled in tandem with her thoughts. Would honesty engender support or expose her to ridicule? The thought weighed on her, a constant companion as she whisked together her ideas with the same fervor she employed in her baking. Sarah opened her notebook, its pages filled with sketches and ideas for her bakery, but now also for her words. She started by recalling the many failures along her path, the times she had thrown away cake layers, the batches of dough that had turned rock hard. Each misstep told a story. Just as she never discarded an ingredient without considering its potential value, she hesitated to dismiss her experiences of failure as pointless. With a pen poised, she wrote about resilience, weaving in metaphors drawn from her racing backdrop, reminding her readers that life, like baking or racing, was rarely a straight path. Struggling to perfect a recipe mirrored her endeavors in the racetrack. Learning when to press forward and when to pull back became essential in both arenas. As words flowed onto the page, excitement crept in. This was not merely a confession, this was a declaration of authenticity. Sarah imagined others reading her words, connecting with her stories of struggle and triumph. Could someone else feel emboldened to share their fears because of her? That notion ignited a flicker of courage within her, yet, as she fell deeper into this creative zone, the specter of fear returned. An internal voice cautioned her. Who does she think she is to share this? Who would care about her little bakery and her racing dreams? The questions clawed at her resolve, making her fingers freeze mid-air. "I'm just a baker," she whispered to herself. "No one needs to hear from me." Her shoulders sagged, the weight of doubt threatening to crush her burgeoning ambition. But then the memory of Joshua's words flooded back, his unwavering belief in her potential. He had seen something in her that went beyond her bakery and racing. He had recognized her capacity to inspire. That recognition was a lifeline, a lighthouse beckoning her back into the stormy waters of self-doubt. Fueled by that recollection, she resumed typing, her heart pounding with a mixture of apprehension and excitement. The draft began to take shape, an invitation to her audience. Each sentence was a step toward a revelation where past misfortunes were not defined by pain but by the lessons they cultivated. The concept of releasing imperfections felt liberating, like an anchor finally thrown off. But as she neared completion, a chilling thought interrupted her flow. What if her revelations were met with hostility? In taking this leap, she was not just showcasing her bakery, she was laying her vulnerabilities bare. The rejection, she knew, could slice deeper than any failure in the kitchen. She paused once more, teetering on that edge of vulnerability. Just beyond it lay empowerment, a platform for others to connect, yet it also stood poised to fracture her joy if met with scorn. She could picture her social media posts, smiling while holding a perfectly styled chocolate torte, but just as vividly, she could see the image of a deflated soufflé haunting the comments section. The tension mounted as an impending storm, knowing that the time for action was arriving. There had to be a moment of commitment, a declaration of her intentions to the world, to herself. Glancing at the clock, Sarah realized she was running out of time. The deadline loomed, and she had to decide, would she conceal her light, or would she dare to step boldly into the spotlight? With a trembling hand, she pressed send. On her first post, heart racing in her chest. It would be her unveiling, a challenge to her fears. As the screen blinked back at her with minimal likes and reactions, the relief of having released her fears intermingled with the anxiety of awaiting judgment. But suddenly, a notification popped up. One message stood out, a stranger responding with an honest, heartfelt comment about their struggles, sparked by her vulnerability. The connection ignited something profound within Sarah, an epiphany that perhaps, just perhaps, vulnerability creates intimacy. With her heart pounding anew, she wrestled with the emerging realization, sharing her imperfections could forge bonds stronger than success. But how would she uphold this newfound connection in the face of harsher critiques that might follow? The moment was here. She had taken a courageous leap, but the road ahead would demand even more resilience. How would she respond when faced with criticism, and would she remain steadfast in her narrative? The potential for backlash loomed larger than before, challenging her to confront the world afresh, embodying the journey she had so ardently begun. The tension settled heavily in the air around Sarah as she stared at her glowing screen, the weight of her recent post bearing down on her chest like a stone. The words she had shared, a cocktail of vulnerability and strength, had flowed out in an instant, yet the aftermath felt like a drumroll of uncertainty thundered long past the note. She had stepped into the unknown, presenting herself raw and unscripted, and now awaited the reaction with an anxious heart. Over the next few days, she meticulously checked her notifications, each ping a reminder of her fragile state. Part of her craved validation, eager for signs that she wasn't alone in her fears. On the other hand, the bubbling anxiety of criticism threatened to eclipse any hope she harbored. The comments she had received so far were warm, validating her courage, but that small chorus of support felt like a fragile thread stretching taut between her aspirations and her apprehensions. As the supportive messages poured in, she found solace in the evolving dialogues. People began sharing their narratives, revealing vulnerabilities of their own. It felt surreal, a tender patch sewn into her own unfolding story. Yet, every time she logged on, the dread whispered to her. What if the next comment would tear her leap apart? What if her authenticity flared anger rather than empathy? Sarah tried to shake the invasion of her own insecurities, anchoring her feelings. Whenever doubt slinked in to settle on her shoulders, she turned back to her bakery, a sanctuary filled with the comforting sense of baking bread and melting chocolate. Each knead of dough became a metaphor for her journey, her fingers moving rhythmically as she channeled her worries into the dough. But the conflicts in her mind mirrored the preparation of a challenging recipe. Baking had always brought her clarity. Now, it was a matter of selecting the right ingredients to produce a life experience worth sharing. Every rise had its fall, the delicate balance of success and failure resting in her hands. After a week, when enough time had passed for the initial flurry of responses to settle, she felt compelled to reflect deeper. She made a decision, an intention to transform the vulnerability she had shared into tangible action. It was not just about her words anymore. She would channel the connections emerging from her post into her bakery. What if she held an event, a gathering where others could bring their own stories to the table? A space for shared experiences, where the ingredients of struggle could simmer together, forging new connections amidst the oven's warmth. The thought flickered like a candle in her mind. It was risky, stepping into a space where her intimacy could be laid bare once more. But the idea gained momentum, propelling her forward. Sarah began crafting a plan. She envisioned tables laden with pastries, laughter punctuating the air while stories curved around each bite. It wasn't merely an event, it could be a dialogue, a blossoming of community bolstered by shared vulnerability. Yet, just as enthusiasm mounted, a knot of fear twisted within her. What if no one showed up? What if her vision crumbled like an overbaked cake? The specter of failure loomed large again, a haunting reminder of her past missteps. With determination kindling within her, she pushed against that fear once more. If she could share her story, she could present a space for others to do the same. Courage and self-doubt standing side by side, an invitation to forge something deeper and more meaningful than her individual journey. A reminder that baking was not just about profit, it was an exploration of identity, connection, and resilience. Emboldened by this revelation, she began reaching out. Social media posts, flyers, even direct messages. The excitement was palpable, yet it intertwined with trepidation. Could the bakery serve as the backdrop for vulnerability and change? As the days crept forward, she felt the contours of her new endeavor shaping into something real. She watched as excitement mingled with apprehension, a duality she had learned to embrace. Yet the venturing path remained shadowed. How would her community respond to an intrusive spotlight? What challenges awaited her on this uncharted course? The time had come to face the unknown, but it wasn't just the event she was preparing for. Sarah braced herself to confront her biggest fear, yet the implications of vulnerability met with public scrutiny. The crossroad was clear. Would she dare to ignite genuine connections, or retreat into the comforting silence of her kitchen? The moment for action was near, and the heartbeat of her endeavor grew louder. Would bravery prevail when faced with the inevitable resistance, and how would such courage reshape her understanding of success? As the days unfolded, Sarah felt a palpable shift within her. Not only was she preparing for the upcoming community event at her bakery, but she was also embracing the metamorphosis ignited by her journey. Her heartbeat had grown steadier, a counterpoint to the anxiety that had once gripped her. She sensed that she was becoming unbound from the shackles of self-doubt and was inching closer to an authentic representation of herself, both as a baker and as a woman with aspirations that stretched far beyond the ranch. On the day of the gathering, as she put the final touches on tables adorned with trays of pastries, she felt an overwhelming blend of excitement and apprehension. What if no one comes? She whispered to herself, the nagging voice a familiar undertone. Yet, she pushed through, determined to showcase her story in a space she had designed for open-hearted exchanges. As the clock struck 2, timid laughter trickled in through the open doors. One by one, faces brightened, eyes wide with curiosity. There was Tom, the local farmer, along with fleeting acquaintances and unexpected friends mingling among sets of pastries baked with love. Each person brought a commodity of vulnerability, sharing their ambitions, insecurities, and lived experiences. The event felt surreal. Amidst the flour dust floating in the air, life began simmering into a new recipe. As she moved between tables, interacting with her guests, Sarah felt less like the farmer's daughter and more like the architect of her own narrative. She no longer yearned for validation alone, it was her courage that was inspiring others. Guests began sharing their stories, interweaving themes of risk and ambition with laughter and tears. Can we each create something together next time? A woman proposed, her voice brimming with excitement. What if we shared our passions and built a quarterly open mic-style gathering? Glimpses of additional dreams began to sprout as the conversations unfolded, each probing deeper than mere pastries. They were igniting a movement forged from a kitchen. After the last guest left, Sarah leaned against the counter, her heart racing with exhilaration. The warmth of familiarity laced with camaraderie enveloped her like a well-loved quilt. She glimpsed the remnants of pastries, each one a small token of her victory. There was beauty in sharing her imperfections, and in doing so, she discovered how others beautifully nestled their dreams among theirs. Later that evening, she collapsed onto her couch, breathless and sated. Her phone buzzed to life, notifications flooding in. Messages of gratitude, encouragement, and shared ambitions began to pour in. Each was a confirmation that vulnerability could spark a transformation not only within herself but also in the lives of those around her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, an overwhelming sense of accomplishment washed over her. She remembered the countless times she had hesitated to act, teetering at the edge of uncertainty. Yet, as she reflected on the day's events, she recognized the strength she had cultivated. She had transformed her bakery from a mere space for bread and pastries into a sanctuary for dreams, a vessel nurturing growth for everyone who walked through the door. Weeks went by, and the gatherings evolved into recurring celebrations of vulnerability, creativity, and resilience. Balancing the demands of her bakery with her newfound role as a community leader felt natural. She had cultivated a space where people no longer just had to hide behind their labels, they could exchange their challenges, finding empowerment and connection along the way. The impending sense of dread that once came with sharing her story faded, supplanted by a newfound confidence. Her bakery and her racing ambitions were intertwined in ways she had never anticipated. Each loaf of sourdough, each cookie, came vividly alive with her authentic spirit, a story knitted carefully with the threads of her fears and triumphs. Sarah recognized that true growth occurred not just in moments of success, but also in grappling with frailty and imperfection. And now, she wasn't merely the farmer's daughter, she was Sarah the baker, the dreamer, the creator of spaces where others could bloom. With this self-realization shaping her new identity, she finally felt in control of her destiny. She had conquered her fears, and in doing so, had forged a welcoming legacy that would extend far beyond her family's ranch. The final realization settled confidently within her, a promise to embrace every layer of her journey, embracing both the bitter and sweet, while navigating whatever challenges lay ahead with the perseverance she had unearthed within. As the chapter closed on this season of her life, she smiled at the future, ready for whatever awaited her on the racetrack of aspirations. Now is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire change and resilience. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our journey. Comment your reactions and theories about this inspiring ending, and don't wait even one more second to share this transformative tale with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means the world. It fuels our mission to spread empowerment and personal growth.